Enjoyment. I did feel an unmistakable sense of enjoyment there. Heap. Lying in heaps next to their fine clothes. Snap. If you didn't snap at me, I wouldn't learn anything. Snigger. Your vassals are starting to snigger behind your back. Strap. And strapped him to a cross. Faithful. And sworn brother of the Night's Watch. Ever faithful. Grey. And that is exactly why Grey Worm took part in these negotiations. Bulk. And the bulk of the remaining Dothraki and Unsullied. Drummer. Drummers were playing for coppers on the East Bank. Terrifying. Or how terrifying to everyone else. Woe. And the lowly a respite from their woes. Rejoice. The young may rejoice in the new world you have built for them. Scary. And the scary people and the people you don't like? Satisfied. People like you and me are never really satisfied inside the box. Skeleton. And then it doesn't matter whose skeleton sits on the Iron Throne. Thoroughly. For being a thoroughly respectful fellow. Thus ending the dragon-slaying career. Unburden. But piece by piece, he unburdened himself. Rotten. And we're surprised when the fruit of their incest is rotten? Cheek. It was a peck on the cheek, Lord Royce, nothing more. Wrath. And what of my wrath? Lord Stark? Skewer. He weren't much of a villain, what skewered him? Refer. It would be easier to refer to him if he had a name. Jam. Don't jam it in like you're spearing a pig. Credit. And you take credit because you dropped a leech into the fire? Quit. Will you quit the war just because you've lost a battle? Mistaken. Just mistaken. Yes. Very mistaken. Particular. Any lies in particular? Pervert. Anyone named Desmond Crackahall must be a pervert. Testify. Testifying against me wasn't a suggestion. Self. Appropriate. For a self-made man. Deaf. Are you bloody deaf? Vomit. You did vomit when that boy's eye. Brand. Arrive within a fortnight or be branded an enemy of the crown. Unfortunately. I'm not dead yet. Unfortunately for you. Rage. Marrying a Targaryen was all the rage back then. Leap. But if your red woman told him to leap from the crow's nest. Sunset. We'll lose more come sunset. Diary. It's what the High Septon wrote in his private diary. Degenerate. She married a traitor and known degenerate. Awkward. Well, that is an awkward situation indeed. Appoint. First Builder Yarwick and I have decided to appoint. Paramount. Tell your son Bran and Rickon's safety is paramount. Curl. I've always liked a girl with curls. Liability. Because he would have been a liability in the Seven Kingdoms. Reckless. I believe this mission to be reckless. Foolhardy. Restrained. I think you should exercise restraint. A while. It may be a while before you see another. Chin. Benjen always lifts his chin when he's about to charge. Primary. What I want is no longer the primary consideration. Entertainment. Under my rule murder will once again become entertainment. Midday. Black Walder and Lothar promised to be here by midday. Bat. With no one but this old bat for company, I'd go mad. Frost. Our people are used to fighting in the frost. Verse. There are some who know every verse of the sacred text. 20,000 men. Is it? Treasure. Though I would treasure your friendship. Outrageous. But they do have outrageous amounts of money. Oppose. But after we've won and there's no one left to oppose us. Overestimate. You overestimate our influence. Horizon. But I sense true greatness on the horizon for our new king. Flute. We can have a harp, if you like, but no flutes. Wander. We don't want our new friend wandering the countryside alone. Prominent. Who found his way into the home of a very prominent family. Saving. Of course I wouldn't have needed saving. Benefit. Most of whom probably thought they could use that name to benefit themselves. Mirror. He polished his shield for a week so that it was like a mirror. Forgiving. The climate is a bit more forgiving back in Highgarden. Your Grace. Provoke. The last time we provoked them too far. Considerable. I stole a considerable number of books from the Citadel Library. Progress. I've been working day and night. What progress have you made? Mask. Butchered by cowards who hide behind masks. Originally. Came from somewhere else originally. Assistance. These men from the capital requested our assistance. Midst. What would you say if I told you of a great sinner in our very midst? Impregnable. The gates of Casterly Rock are impregnable. Perimeter. Have your lads start digging perimeter trenches. Destruction. The destruction of the September of Baelor was a tragic accident. Follower. The Lord of Light doesn't have many followers in Westeros, does he? Unravel. Tywin Lannister knows what he needs to do to make us unravel. Linen. I kept his clothing and linens clean. Clothing. Clothing and property as they can carry. Charm. You didn't win my father's support or his army on charm alone. Deceit. I'm not sure deceit and mass murder are the best ways to start. Lazy. Get up, you lazy sons of whores. Plunder. Raiders come plundering, steal our food, steal our silver. Civil. Trying to placate a city on the brink of civil war. Dearly. Cost the 7 kingdoms dearly in blood and gold. Flavor. Well, you don't drink it for the flavor. To be honest. Daybreak. The rearguard should be here by daybreak. Deception. Deceptions to make men think they witnessed our Lord's power. Decline. So I could watch the city below decline into chaos. Monkey. To the tune of a twisted demon monkey. Appearance. Despite appearances, I think you'll find the city's on the rise. Suspicion. And have you shared these suspicions with Lord Tywin? Develop. Some boys develop more slowly. Insight. Did it ever once occur to you that I might have some insight? Overboard. Did you see little Theon's face right before he jumped overboard? Tremble. Didn't tremble at the shadow of an unborn child. Disrespectful. Unacceptable disrespectful. Victor. For the queen to stay until the victor has emerged. Wretched. I'm leaving this wretched city as fast as I can. Scratch. Do you plan on sitting here scratching your balls till winter? Pyre. Don't ask me to stand aside as you climb on that pyre. Announce. Have they announced the judges yet? Arrival. Even before your arrival they plotted against her. Drawbridge. Lower the drawbridge and open the gate for Lord Ed. Seawater. Let his lungs fill with seawater. Greedy. Seems a bit greedy for one man to have so many wives. Lunge. You shouldn't grimace before you lunge. Unfair. Don't you think it's a little bit unfair? Bank. If we fail to repay these loans, the bank will fund our enemies. Dusty. It is where the warlocks go to squint at dusty books. Elegant. Is the history of great conversations in elegant rooms. Empire. Empires have been built by less. Household. Enough to overwhelm what remains of my household guard. Enslave. Those who survive we shall enslave once more. Labor. Have been laboring day and night, your grace. Ambitious. Of course ambitious climbers don't want to stop. Imbecile. Murderous imbeciles enthralled to evil incarnate. Cargo. Except someone normally cares what happens to cargo. Extremely. For which I am extremely grateful to you, my lord. Faceless. While I was training to be a faceless man. Praise. I can imagine no higher praise. Ferocious. If they're half as ferocious as their lady. Finery. The Tyrell's finery will be stripped away. Pitch. First builder we'll need 100 barrels of pitch brought it up the wall. Race. 3 stabbings and a drunken horse race down the street of sisters. Flood. We flooded the gutters with wine. Relative. She's Ariah's last living relative with money. Cynic. For what it's worth, I've been a cynic for as long as I can remember. Afflict. For years I pretended to love the poor, the afflicted. Diplomacy. What she lacks in diplomacy, she makes. Freak. She unveiled the freak. Yoke. From the yoke of the South. just like you're doing now. Elder. To a council of elders made up of both. Generally falls to the lord of that holdfast. Juice. Should I have them bring you some cake or pomegranate juice? Razor. If you shaved your beard with a straight razor. Firm. I say he betrayed me for firm tits. Flea. She grew up just down the road in Flea Bottom. Fabric. The embroidery. The metalwork. Pivot. Now pivot as you deliver the stroke. Fury. They have affection for their friends and fury for their enemies. Sanction. Grand Maester Pycelle, would you sanction that statement? Assign. Had to assign a septa to watch her at meals. Financial. He called your experience and wisdom in financial matters unparalleled. Potion. You don't need powders and potions, my queen. Pox. One of the boys came down with the pox. Nickname. It's an exceedingly clever nickname. Fulfill. Until he fulfills his end of the bargain and I have my crown. Preside. He now presides over the small council. Softly. He said, perhaps you should speak more softly to me then. Groom. The lads caught a groom and two maids trying to sneak away. Courtyard. My men are bringing your people together in the courtyard. Scale. Let the fish eat the scales off his eyes. Unlucky. I've been unlucky in my affections. Sadly. Gallant. You raised a gallant young man. Prevail. If my wretched brother should somehow prevail. Fang. If the bull had fangs and claws, I would. Costume. Saw the painted faces. The costumes. Disappointing. To be the disappointing child. Respond. Start with a yearling and teach it to respond to the reins. Response. My lord is the standard response. Confine. Publicly shamed. And confined to the red keep. Solution. We are currently at work on a solution, my lord. Idol. I ordered him to tear down his idols. Upper. I can leave your upper arm make the cut at your elbow. Elbow. I can leave your upper arm make the cut at your elbow. Poet. I didn't realize you were a poet. Concept. I didn't really understand the concept of death. Gem. They can pry out the gems. The rest is pure gold. Tender. I don't mean in my tender heart, it still pains me so. Qualification. What qualifications can he possibly have for this post? Encounter. I encountered a situation with one of my lieutenants. Confused. She sounds confused. Patch. Your old blind man patched me up. Team. I have a team of men after them with some of my best hounds. Hatred. Your hatred for my family is rather well known. Mink. The sleekest little minx in Bravas. Honestly. If you honestly believed my father would never find out about it. Improvement. I imagine for most of them it would be an improvement. Implore. I implored him to visit you but he would not. Appetite. The sheer range of appetites catered to. Plain. I mean some people settle for plain old beef kidneys. Extent. I mean, to the extent that he ever understood. Skinny. I never liked the skinny ones. Honeycomb. I once walked into a brothel with a honeycomb and a jackass. Orphanage. I paid a visit to an orphanage the High Septon told me about. Baker. The head of the baker who makes my bread. Diplomatic. Jamie's away on a sensitive diplomatic mission. Crossroad. You can die here at this crossroads a long way from home. Embroider. Skipping down the corridors in his embroidered silks. Similar. So far, hunting seems very similar to riding. My lord. Bucket. 1 bucket of this triples a brothel's earnings for the week. Robe. You want to see what's beneath this robe. Philosophical. I suppose it's a rather philosophical difference. Exercise. The king will exercise that prerogative. Recover. I too would like them to recover some things that belong to me. Helpless. What kind of knight beats a helpless girl? Offering. I was sold as a slave and carved up as an offering. Eloquent. In my experience, eloquent men are right. Impulsive. I'd keep you from doing anything impulsive. Blacken. When the fire burned out, I thought I'd find her blackened bones. Square. The square token for Sir denies Malister. Accommodate. Must be enormously difficult to accommodate that inclination. Wager. So why would a captain make the wager in the first place? Discretion. Your discretion is legendary, where your friends are concerned. Partake. I'm afraid I don't partake. Hog. No one's going to believe you're a hog farmer if you eat them all. Owl. I'm not talking about owls and shadowcats. Achievement. Spending your life reading about the achievements of better men. Jar. I've seen making grand claims about jars full of pig shit. Handful. If a handful of people know now, hundreds will know soon. Faint. When I knew that they could never have the faintest idea. Squirt. There's no squirting the cream back up her udders. Describe. If it can't be used to describe a royal wedding. Population. That clean water leads to a healthier population. Triple. 1 bucket of this triples a brothel's earnings for the week. Climber. If the climbers get too high, drop the scythe on them. Absolute. You can trust my absolute loyalty, my lord. Pose. Is that why you called me here? To pose me riddles? Impressed. You've always been rather impressed with yourself, haven't you? Windmill. If you're impressed by a windmill. Puddle. Not that I'm averse to drinking from a puddle. Enthusiasm. It's a shame he can't muster the same enthusiasm for his wife. Nest. Your pretty crow said 1,000 men are nesting there. Turmoil. Lastly, in these times of treason and turmoil. Depart. In 3 days' time he'll depart for Castle Black. Advance. She pays in advance and in gold. Weed. Influence grows like a weed. Invest. We invest in endeavors we deem likely to be successful. Distasteful. Some consider usury distasteful, dishonorable. Frustrating. It's all terribly frustrating. Customary. It is customary to kneel when surrendering to a king. Wade. Still she'll have to wade through that muck. Muck. Still she'll have to wade through that muck. Male. It would make you the last male heir of House Targaryen. Taking. The North is ripe for the taking. Embarrassing. More embarrassing than being chained to a post. Sally. While they sneak off for a little sally on the side? Simper. Simper and bow. The ones who sneered at you for years? Prerogative. The king will exercise that prerogative. Theater. That bit of theater will haunt our family for a generation. Sorrow. Oh, darkest day. My heart is full of sorrow. Sensitive. To withhold sensitive information from his counselors. Jealousy. Unless I have to listen to more of your jealousy. Pink. You're just a pink little man. Juicy. Serve him up a nice juicy slice of ginger minge. Reading. You think all reading is dull reading. Repent. Loras's only hope is to confess his crimes and repent. Opposite. We fought on opposite sides at the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Contest. What's the prize to winning this stupid contest? Dear. Mance has gathered them all like deer against the wolves. Preserve. They set me to the task of preserving that man's window counting. May as well jump back in that river. Specifically. May I ask specifically what the king has in mind? Example. May I be a living example of their grace. Thigh. More repugnant than your knarled fingers on that girl's thighs? Deck. There is far more than this awaiting you on the deck of your ship. Ointment. My dagger was coated with a special ointment from Ashay. Desperate. Your mother's desperate to see you. Greeting. My lord father, the king's hand, sends his greetings as well. Announcement. My love, why don't we make the announcement? Mouse. My Uncle Kevin has all the courage of a kitchen mouse. Braid. They cut off their braids so the whole world can see their shame. Scrape. She always comes back with scrapes and bruises. Deeply. We're heading deeper and deeper into wildling territory. Religious. You know how they are, these religious girls. Masquerade. Not as exhilarating as those balls and masquerades you like to throw. Planning. Planning dances and masquerades with the other noble ladies. Discard. That we can afford to discard able young bodies and skilled laborers? Occasionally. You must occasionally use some of them to talk about things. Distance. Respect is how the young keep us at a distance. Swoon. You'd be swooning if you saw the great keep at Winterfell. Fester. Otherwise it's gonna get infected and fester. Keen. Our fathers are both rather keen on the prospect. Granary. The granaries are being emptied and loaded into wagons, my lord. Popular. Our queen is not as popular in Meereen as she used to be. Discreet. Perhaps you might consider being a bit more discreet? Pluck. The martel plucks the fly out and swallows it whole. Compromise. Which means it's a good compromise, I suppose. Radiant. You look radiant, your grace. Reveal. Why would he reveal such plans to his wife's maid? Patient. Right here today at this gathering if you had been patient. Improve. Robin's skills will have improved immeasurably. Rub. Whenever the crown needs money, he rubs his hands together. Grovel. We know what it's like to have them grovel to our faces. Blend. We're trying to blend in. Tame. She knows a tame wolf is more used to her than a dead one. Hostility. You can't expect us to halt hostilities and join you in fighting. Unharmed. To see you unharmed. Closed. Should I explain to you the meaning of a closed door? Somewhat. So it appears your allegiances are somewhat flexible. Privy. Some of them may be privy to Tywin Lannister's plans. Steer. We should steer clear of it. Humiliation. Stop Queen Margaery's humiliation before it starts. Symptom. Symptoms that are not your concern. Expel. Your reward is not being immediately expelled from the citadel. Worm. You tell lies right to my face, you little worm? Tense. Your muscles tense up when you hold. Degree. Which will require a degree of influence which. Discussion. There'll be no more discussion on the matter. Reinforce. While ours have been reinforced with the golden compan. Wipe. This war has already wiped one great house from the world. Exhaust. The men we have left are exhausted. Hen. To visit me and my foolish flock of hens. Locate. When I asked you to locate Arya Stark. Counselor. Today I shall accept oaths of fealty from my loyal counselors. Unbroken. Unbowed. Unbent. Unbroken. Dancer. A better dancer than a singer, I'm afraid. Gruesome. But it's not as gruesome as all that. Nippy. A bit nippy. Yeah. By the fire. Indoors. Collection. Littlefinger looks at you and sees a collection of profitable holes. Believer. I never thought you'd have a true believer for a son. Singular. A deep and singular misery. Fearless. She was fearless. Galley. A galley's waiting in the bay bound for the free cities. Hat. Could have been one of those gold-hatted bastards. For all I know. Stamina. I hope I have as much stamina when I'm your age. Major. A grasper from a minor house with a major talent. Goblet. A handsome goblet, my lord. Crucial. A latrine captain to oversee this crucial task. Misfortune. A little misfortune and you're giving up. Cruelly. A member of your family treated so cruelly. Memorable. Now that's memorable. Shade. And drink shade of the evening. Painful. A more painful death for your little cunt. Painter. A painter who only used red. Parley. A parley or a fight? Bonfire. The signal for the attack will be a bonfire. Oath. His father was an oaf as well. Priceless. Yes, and he gave you a priceless necklace. Philosopher. There's nothing worse than a late blooming philosopher. Reckoning. The day of reckoning came. Renowned. As renowned as Prince Oberyn at his wedding feast. Scene. And you fled the scene of his murder. Ideally we'd avoid purifying too many non-believers. Sheath. She sells her sheath and you sell your blade. Goodwill. As a gesture of goodwill from Tyrion Lannister. Troublesome. To help deal with several troublesome issues. Patron. A very wealthy patron. He offered me a tremendous amount of money. Foolish. Abandon their posts, and sacrifice our men on foolish missions. Obedience. Such is their obedience. Differ. I beg to differ. Activity. Are details of your grandson's nocturnal activities. Adjust. Time to adjust to the new order. Reality. Will this action help to make this picture a reality? Colleague. After a long consultation with my colleague Sir Bronn. Untimely. I married her Aunt Lisa shortly before my beloved's untimely death. Interrogate. After we interrogate them, we usually just. Afterward they aren't ash and bone. Tart. The famously tart-tongued Queen of Thorns. Remarkable. The Queen of Thorns is a remarkable woman. Poorly. The council has a reputation for serving past hands poorly. Alice. But Alice. Winning a kingdom and ruling a kingdom. Valid. All desires are valid to a man with a full purse. Fry. Fried up with some butter? Whistle. When you hear a songbird's whistle you come. Review. All matters of consequence will be brought to you for review. Brief. During your brief tenure as hand. Instant. At any of my handmaidens for another instant. Frightening. Frightening me. Humiliating me. Herding the masters into pens and slaughtering them by the thousands. Manuscript. All these manuscripts and scrolls are rotting away. Divine. There's no divine justice, you dumb cunt. Artist. She's an artist, this one truly. Amazing. Amazing thing to see. Amputee. Is it true that Sir Marlon of Tumblestone prefers amputees? Itch. An amputee might have an itch where his foot used to be. Arena. An entire arena for a few sickly creatures smaller than dogs. Inspiration. Your ambition is an inspiration. Representative. An unacceptable way to treat the chosen representative. Upstart. But like all upstarts, you overreach. Divided. And a divided North won't stand a chance against the Night King. Comprise. And a temple is comprised of stones. Thereafter. And a wedding not more than a fortnight thereafter. Period. It may not cover a period lasting longer than a year. Peck. It was a peck on the cheek, Lord Royce, nothing more. Occasional. The occasional kindness will spare you. Arrogance. That is exactly the sort of arrogance. Dictate. I do not recognize your authority to dictate. Jolly. And before that, he was a jolly fellow. Restoration. And beloved citizens oversaw the restoration. Crisp. And crisped them so no one would know. Chip. Pieces of you get chipped away. Result. You might be disappointed in the results. Display. And displayed their corpses at Winterfell. Befall. And every other tragedy that has befallen their cursed country. Transport. For one of these gutter rats you're transporting. Freely. And freely admit to my crimes. Celibate. What? We can't defend the wall unless we're celibate. Shroud. And gold their shrouds. Gray. And gray hairs will sprout from your ears. Brocade. And green brocade with fringed sleeves. Lap. Take your clothes off and come and sit on Marrow's lap. Famish. And he was famished. So he borrowed a ham. Accordance. Would not be in accordance with the king's laws. Higher. Married a lady far lovelier and higher born than himself. Pillage. The ironborn will reave and pillage as it was in the old days. Character. I happen to be a great judge of character. Residence. And I did not take up residence in this pyramid. Election. Maester Eamon became quite ill shortly after the election. Greet. And instead we're greeted by a dwarf and a eunuch. Slaughterhouse. Without turning it into a slaughterhouse. Stir. And it stirs when you put a sword in his hand. Dodge. I spent most of my life dodging the royal fleet. Maintenance. and maintenance of its greatest landmarks. Mix, and mix his innards up in my food. Stroll, and my men will stroll in here and bash you about. Bash, and my men will stroll in here and bash you about. Predicament, and now, how to avert disaster with our current predicament. Nick, I could nick this artery in your leg. Pave, you walk as though the paving stones were your personal property. Pious, oh, there's plenty of pious sons of bitches. Produce, without Sansa, you won't be able to produce an heir. Perilous, and protect him in these perilous times. Pronounce, and quite impossible for foreigners to pronounce. Remarry, my father remarried and his new wife gave birth to a girl. Integrity, and respect the integrity of the 7 kingdoms. Roast, Heron and all his sons roasted alive within these walls. Ruthless, and ruthless when he had to be. Confirm, our scouts confirm it's even larger than the Kingslayers. Righteousness, you have taken the first step on the path back to righteousness. Tanner, and some of us tanners and masons. Stumble, and somewhere in these woods your horse will stumble. Cradle, and the man cradled his head and told him to be calm. Slum, I made my way from the slums of Mere. Charwomen, and their glory than the charwomen scrubbing their floors. Smug, I'm not interested in hearing another one of your smug stories. Plump, and they do it, so plump little lords like you. Sinful, she's sullen and stubborn and sinful. Unborn, and unborn children deny it in their mothers' wombs. Contribution, and we are so grateful for your contributions. Strategic, and we have no further strategic need for it. Wrestle, and we were wrestling together from the time we were 6 years old. Income, and what did Littlefinger say about this loss of income? Recommend. Lord Snow here recommends sealing the tunnel. Caution. Kings lack the caution of common men. Marksman, and which one of you was a marksman at 10? Conspiracy, and who helped me with this conspiracy? Breathing, how well do wooden ships fare against fire-breathing dragons? Shag, and yet you punish Loras for shagging some perfumed ponds. Bug, and you had bugs all over you. Compassion, and you have compassion. Fur, and your son's got no fur to keep his balls warm. Assist, and, of course, it's our duty to assist the capital in time of need. Employer, your current employer hides his very well. Original, the original weapon was absurdly large. Comrade, why would I trust a man who murders his comrades? Appreciation, your father lacks an appreciation. Dessert, I've always served thieves according to their deserts. Exception, any Ironborn with the exception of Theon Greyjoy. Vinegar, give me 4 with vinegar. Unfit, my life has left me uniquely unfit for constraint. Interpret, anyway there's nothing for him to interpret. Interruption, apologies for the interruption. Stange, the little lady wants away from your stange. Exclusive, I'm afraid foreigners aren't welcome at such exclusive affairs. Fig, I always take figs mid-afternoon. Bait, you want us to use you as bait? Relate, did you ever do anything remotely related to combat? Repeat, aren't you supposed to repeat the words? Gesture, as a gesture of goodwill from Tyrion Lannister. Sane, I can't remember ever seeing a sane man. Tasteless, Robert's rather tasteless about it. Repeatedly, being repeatedly humiliated by Robb Stark is time-consuming. Access, if I could have access to the restricted area of the library. Huge, how can someone so small be such a huge pain in my ass? Restitution, as restitution for the mistakes my soldiers made. Consolidate, as soon as I've consolidated my troops. Smooth, smoothing what was jagged, so does a woman's love. Ford, at the Mummers Ford girls of 7 years were raped. Arise, the king in the north arises. Grunt, or grunt at my husband and hope. Bargaining, bargaining with oath-breakers is like building on quicksand. Venom. The cause appears to be manticore venom. Ball. Balling all the time. Never sleeping. Net. Be careful of their nets. Barbarian. Bearded. Stinking barbarians. Employ. Because he has thousands of spies in his employ. Exotic. So that people will think she's exotic. Skeptical. Some of my more skeptical friends refuse to believe. Endanger. I only meant that to go out of your way to endanger yourself. Sport. Before you set them to butchering each other for sport? Behold. Behold the fate of those who choose the darkness. Bide. I fear the masters will simply bide their time. Proportionate. It feels proportionate. Frail. She couldn't speak anymore. She was so frail. Relentless. Or the reason behind his relentless beetle slaughter. Butter. The secret is browning the butter before making the dough. Traditional. Your grace today is the traditional start of the fighting season. Amidst. Born amidst salt and smoke? Equally. The gods' laws must be applied to all equally. Over here. Break a few fingers. Over here a few more things. Bottle. Bring him a shaved goat and a bottle of olive oil. Repugnant. More repugnant than your gnarled fingers on that girl's thighs? Brutality. In essence her brutality is already legendary. Guidance. But also to offer guidance and counsel in times of war. Soundly. He attacked King's Landing and was soundly defeated.